The small serene town of San Lucido, life humbled along its own pace. The cobblestone streets wound through rows of charming houses and quaint shops, the air tinged with smell of fresh bread and blooming flowers. Nestled between two rolling hills and a sparkling river, cars on the streets, the modern-day society was not far-fetched. It was a place where people dream and dreams do come true. A place where seemed to stand still, a beautiful environment where love could flourish, a place where dreams could come true. It was here that Giovanni arrived, a young and ambitious medical student eager to prove himself. The weight of his family expectation rested on his shoulders, but Giovanni didn't mind. He had always dreamed of becoming a doctor. For him, this town was a stepping stone, a place to focus on his studies and build his future. But one morning, everything changed. Giovanni walked through the town square with a book tucked under his arm when he noticed her, a young, charming, beautiful girl. She was sitting by the window of a cozy cafe, her nose and attention buried in a novel. She had an air of quiet confidence, elegance, and poise. The kind that made bustling walls revolve around her and seem irrelevant. She was a lady of class and status. Her soft dark frame face and sunlight streaming through the window gave her an eternal glow. Giovanni stopped in his tracks, captivated. He didn't know her name, but something about her presence made his heart race. He could feel his heart palpitations, something he appreciates as a medic. He had a scientific evidence of how the abstract feeling of love and lust could control pacemaker cells and heartbeats. He experienced a bit of instantaneous tachycardia. He stood there for a moment, debating whether to go in or not. He stopped, raised. What if she doesn't want to be disturbed? What if she is too rooted in her heart? What if she thinks I'm foolish? But his curiosity got the better of him. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. The cafe was warm and inviting, with the tone of quiet conversations and the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Giovanni approached her table, his heart pounding. "Hi," he said, his voice steady and wavering at the same time, his nerves shaky. "I am Giovanni. I just moved here to study medicine. Mind if I sit?" The girl looked up briefly, her brown eyes meeting his. She blinked, her expression unreadable. "It's a free table," she replied. Her tone was polite but distant. Bella had a way not to ruin her composure. She was indeed a tough nut to crack. Giovanni hesitated for a second and sat down. "Do you come here often?" he asked. He was trying to strike a conversation. Bella responded. "Sometimes," she said. Her focus was already on her book, as if she never wanted a disturbance. Giovanni glanced at the book. "What are you reading?" She replied. "It's just a book." Bella replied, simply turning to a page of the book in a way to end the conversation. Her response was cool, almost dismissive, but Giovanni wasn't discouraged. If anything about her was interesting, it would be the fact that she is mysterious. Intrigued by him even more, he introduced himself again. But she didn't offer a name. Eventually, he thanked her for her time. On thanking her for her time, Giovanni left the cafeteria. He did not wait a second. Eventually, she continued what she was doing. His mind was willing and with the thoughts of her. The next day, Giovanni returned to the cafe, hoping to see her again. She wasn't there, but he struck up a conversation with the barrister, who seemed to know everyone in town. The barrister said, "That's Bella." The barrister obviously knew Bella very well because he had been seeing her. The barrister now said to Giovanni, "Describe the girl. Is she always regular?" And then that means that's Bella. But she always keeps to herself. She doesn't like mingling with people. Over the next few weeks, Giovanni couldn't stop thinking about Bella. He found himself walking through the square more often, his eyes spanning the cafe windows for a glimpse of her. When he finally woke up the nerves to send her a message, "An innocent "Hi Bella, how is your day going?" Her reply came hours later with a single word, "Just fine." Despite her indifference, Giovanni persisted. He invited her to an art show, to a walk along with town's scenic riverbank for a sit-out, even to grab a casual coffee. Each time, her responses were curt refusals or silence. She was not interested. One evening, Giovanni sat in a small apartment, staring at his phone. He scrolled through their brief one-sided conversation, his heart heavy with disappointment. Why do I keep trying? He wondered. She's clearly not interested in me. But something about Bella kept him coming back. Maybe it was a mystery. Maybe it was the chase, the adrenaline rush, or the way she seems to exist in a different world of her own. He convinced himself that she was just a different person and she needed time to open up and warm up to him. The next day, he saw her again in the cafe. She was sitting at her usual spot, reading Giovanni, but not saying a word or looking his direction. She read his moves and everything. Giovanni decided to try one more, just once more. "Bella," he said, standing beside her. She looked up, surprised to see him. "Hi," she said. Her tone was neutral as ever. "I was wondering if you would like to have dinner with me sometimes," Giovanni said, his voice full of sincerity and love. Bella hesitated, her eyes flickering with something he couldn't quite read. "I'm not looking for anything right now," she said, finally. Giovanni forced a smile, nodding in understanding. "I understand," he said. After that, he walked away, his shoulders slightly slumped, feeling a bit disappointed. Something inside him shifted. For the first time, Giovanni allowed himself to accept that Bella might never feel the same way. From that day on, Giovanni focused on himself. He threw himself into his studies, spending more time with his classmates and exploring the town. One of his classmates, Clara, became a close friend. Her warmth and humor were a welcome contrast to Bella's aloofness, and Giovanni found himself smiling again with a friend. Meanwhile, Bella began to notice his absence. She returned to the cafe half expecting him to appear as usual. But he never did. He moved on. The messages she had grown used to stop coming. She kept missing and wanting him. And she realized that she missed them. She realized that she missed him. One afternoon, she saw Giovanni at the library. He was sitting with Clara laughing, and something she said. Bella felt a pang of something she couldn't quite name. Regret, perhaps. Maybe she was just missing the chase. She watched him for a moment before walking away. A few days later, Bella herself mustered her courage and approached him at the library. "Hi, Giovanni," she said softly. Giovanni looked up, surprised but polite, with an expression on his face. Bella," he said with a calm tone. "I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee sometime," she said. Her voice was not what he was used to. Giovanni paused, his eyes searching and searching. Then he smiled faintly and shook his head. "Thanks. I am kind of busy these days. I'm not interested," he said. Bella nodded, her heart sinking as she walked away. For the first time, she understood what it felt like to be ignored, what it felt like to be on the side of indifference. As time went on, Giovanni continued to thrive, excel in his academic, had fun with his friends and Clara. He found joy in his studies, his friends, and the new life he was building. Bella, on the other hand, couldn't help but reflect on what might have been if they were together. She returned to the cafe alone, sitting at her usual spot by the window. She was at the cafe. The book in her hands remained unread as she watched the wall go by, thinking of the boy who had once waited for her and was at her beck and call. She thought he would always come there. She thought he would keep chasing her. She felt like things would continue to be the same. Some moments, like love, are fleeting, and time usually go fast. If you love people, say you love them. And time makes us realize their value when they are already gone. Bella finally wanted Giovanni, but it was too late to love.